Jack Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the warning lights flashing across his ship's control panel. The solar storm had come out of nowhere, forcing him to change course when he was only 3 hours away from his destination. His old cargo ship, the Iron Horse, groaned and shuddered as it fought against the electromagnetic waves that were tearing through space. "Come on, old girl," Jack muttered to his ship, his hands dancing across the controls. "Just a little further, and we can ride this thing out." Jack had been flying cargo runs for 20 years. He knew every trick in the book when it came to keeping an old ship running. The Iron Horse was not pretty to look at, with its dented hull and patched-up engine compartments, but she was tough. She had carried him through asteroid fields, pirate attacks, and more storms than he could count. The storm began to weaken after. Another hour of rough flying. Jack checked his position and cursed under his breath. The storm had pushed him way off course, into a part of space that most pilots avoided. This was the edge of known territory, where the star charts showed nothing but empty space for light years in every direction. Jack was about to set a course back to civilization, when something caught his eye. His sensor display was showing readings that made no sense. There was a massive energy signature coming from what should have been empty space. The readings were so strong that they were making his instruments go crazy. "What the hell?" Jack said, leaning closer to the display. He had seen a lot of strange things in his years of flying, but this was different. The energy patterns were too organized, too structured to be natural. Someone or something was out there, and they were using technology. That was far beyond anything Jack had ever seen. Jack's first instinct was to turn around and get out of there as fast as possible. In his experience, finding mysterious energy signatures in the middle of nowhere usually meant trouble, but something about the readings made him pause. The energy patterns were not random or chaotic like weapon signatures. They were steady and controlled, almost like a power grid. His curiosity got the better of him. Jack had always been the type of person who needed to know what was behind the next door. It was what had driven him to become a pilot in the first place, and it was what had kept him flying the dangerous outer rim routes when most sensible people stayed closer to home. Jack adjusted his sensors for a more detailed scan. What he found made his jaw drop. The energy signature was not coming from a ship or a space station. It was coming from what appeared to be an entire star system. But according to every chart he had, there was nothing there. Jack ran the scan 3 more times, each time getting the same impossible results. There was definitely a star system out there, complete with planets and what looked like artificial structures. But somehow it was completely invisible to normal sensors. The only reason he could detect it at all was because the solar storm had charged his instruments with extra power. "This is not possible," Jack said to himself. But the evidence was right there on his screens. Someone had found a way to hide an entire star system from the rest of the galaxy. Jack knew he should report this to the authorities. The Galactic Council had rules about discovering new systems and making contact with unknown civilizations. But something held him back. The technology required to hide a star system was incredibly advanced. If the Council knew about it, they would have told their pilots to watch for it. The fact that they had not suggested that either the Council did not know about this place, or they were deliberately keeping it secret, Jack made a decision that would change his life forever. He activated his ship's stealth systems and began moving toward the energy signature. The Iron Horse was not a military vessel, but like most cargo ships that flew the outer rim, it had been equipped with basic stealth technology to avoid pirates and other threats. As Jack got closer to the source of the energy, his instruments began picking up more details. The hidden star system was surrounded by some kind of cloaking field. The technology was so advanced that it bent light and energy around the system, making it invisible to anyone who was not looking for it specifically. Jack studied the cloaking field for over an hour, looking for a way to get through it without being detected. The field was not perfect. There were small gaps where the energy patterns overlapped, creating weak points that a small ship might be able to slip through. Jack found a gap that looked big enough for the Iron Horse to pass through. He took a deep breath and guided his ship toward the opening. For a moment, everything went dark as the cloaking field surrounded his ship. Then suddenly he was through. The sight that greeted him on the other side took his breath away. The star system was not empty at all. 3 planets orbited a yellow star that was remarkably similar to Earth's sun. But these were not natural worlds. They had been transformed into something that looked like paradise. The first planet was covered in vast cities that seemed to grow out of the landscape itself. The buildings were made of materials that Jack had never seen before, and they glowed with a soft, warm light. Gardens and parks were everywhere, creating a perfect balance between civilization and nature. The second planet appeared to be mostly agricultural, with enormous farms and forests that stretched as far as the eye could see. The third planet was smaller and seemed to be dedicated to research and manufacturing, with large facilities that hummed with quiet activity. But what shocked Jack the most was not the planets themselves. It was the beings who lived on them. As he flew closer, his sensors picked up life signs from dozens of different species. Some of them he recognized from his studies of galactic history. Others were completely unknown to him. The problem was that many of these species were supposed to be extinct. Jack had studied galactic history as part of his pilot training. He knew about the great catastrophes that had wiped out entire civilizations over the past few centuries. Solar flares that had destroyed star systems, plagues that had killed billions, wars that had left entire worlds uninhabitable. But here, in this hidden system, representatives of those lost civilizations were alive and thriving. The Zephyrians, with their beautiful crystal wings, were supposed to have died out when their homeworld was consumed by its expanding sun. The Corvani, master engineers whose technology had been legendary, had allegedly been wiped out by a supernova. The Thresh, gentle beings who had never hurt anyone, had supposedly fallen to a plague that had no cure. All of them were here, living in what appeared to be a carefully maintained paradise. Jack flew his ship to a safe distance and began recording everything he saw. The more he observed, the more questions formed in his mind. How had these beings survived when their homeworlds were destroyed? Who had built this incredible hidden refuge? And most importantly, why was it being kept secret from the rest of the galaxy? As Jack watched the daily life of the hidden colony, he began to notice things that did not feel right. The different species were kept in separate areas, with little contact between them. There were structures that looked like monitoring stations scattered throughout the colonies. And there was something about the way the beings moved that suggested they were not entirely free. Jack realized that he had stumbled upon something much bigger than a simple hidden colony. This was a secret that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The question was, what was he going to do about it? The old cargo pilot sat in his ship, staring at the impossible sight before him, and knew that his life would never be the same again. Whatever was happening in this hidden system, Jack Morrison was determined to find out the truth. Jack spent 3 days watching the hidden colony from his ship. The more he observed, the more convinced he became that something was very wrong with this place. The beings living on the planets below seemed happy enough, but there were too many things that did not make sense. The different species were kept completely separate from each other. The Zephyrians lived on one continent, the Corvani on another, and the Thresh on a third. There were barriers between their territories that looked like they were meant to keep them apart, not to keep dangers out. Jack had never seen a colony organized this way before. Jack decided he needed to get closer to learn more. He piloted the Iron Horse to the smallest planet, which seemed to have the least security. As he approached, he was surprised when his communication system crackled to life. "Unknown vessel, this is Colony Control. Please identify yourself and state your business." Jack's heart raced. He had been discovered. But the voice on the radio sounded human, which gave him an idea. "This is Captain Jack Morrison of the cargo ship Iron Horse," he said, trying to sound casual. "I was blown off course by a solar storm and my navigation systems are damaged. I need to make repairs." There was a long pause. Then the voice came. "Back. Stand by for escort to Landing Bay 7. Do not deviate from the assigned flight path." 2 small ships appeared and guided Jack to a landing platform on the planet's surface. As he shut down his engines, Jack could see that the platform was surrounded by what looked like normal colony buildings. But he noticed the subtle signs of surveillance equipment hidden in the walls and structures. A woman approached his ship as Jack opened the airlock. She was tall and blonde, with the kind of confident walk that suggested she was used to being in charge. She wore a simple white uniform that looked like it belonged to a research facility. "Captain Morrison," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Dr. Lisa Carter. I'm the head of biological research here. We don't get many visitors." Jack shook her hand and studied her face. She seemed genuinely friendly, but there was something in her eyes that suggested she was not telling him everything. "I appreciate the hospitality," Jack said. "I hope I'm not causing any trouble. I just need to fix my navigation computer and I'll be on my way." "No trouble at all," Lisa replied. "But I'm afraid you'll need to stay in the visitor area while you're here. We have some sensitive research projects going on and we need to maintain security protocols." Jack nodded and followed Lisa through the colony. As they walked, he tried to get a better sense of the place. The buildings were beautiful and well-maintained, but he noticed that there were cameras and sensors everywhere. It felt more like a high-security research facility than a normal colony. "So what kind of research do you do here?" Jack asked. "We study extinct species," Lisa said. "We're trying to understand how they lived and why they disappeared. It's important work for preserving galactic history." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. "Extinct species?" "Yes," Lisa said, not noticing his reaction. "The Galactic Council has been very supportive of our work. They've provided us with genetic samples and historical records from civilizations that were lost over the centuries." Jack realized that Lisa had no idea what was really happening here. She thought she was studying dead civilizations, not living ones. Someone had been lying to her about the true nature of this place. Over the next few hours, Jack learned more about the colony from Lisa. She had been here for 3 years, believing she was part of a classified research project. She told him about the different species they were studying and how the Council had saved genetic material from their homeworlds before they were destroyed. "It's amazing what we've been able to learn," Lisa said as she showed Jack around the research facility. The Zephyrians had such a complex social structure and the Corvani were incredible engineers. The Thresh were completely peaceful, never fighting wars or conflicts. Jack wanted to tell her that these species were not extinct, that they were living right here in this hidden system. But he needed to be careful. If the Council was running this place, they would not be happy to learn that someone had discovered their secret. That evening, Lisa invited Jack to dinner at the colony's main dining hall. The room was filled with humans, all of whom seemed to believe they were part of a legitimate research project. Jack listened to their conversations and realized that none of them knew the truth about what they were really doing here. After dinner, Jack excused himself and went back to his ship. He waited until the colony was quiet, then activated his ship's sensors for a more detailed scan of the planets. What he found confirmed his worst fears. The hidden colony was not a research facility. It was a prison. The different species were being kept in separate areas, monitored constantly by hidden cameras and sensors. Their populations were carefully controlled, with breeding programs designed to maintain genetic diversity while preventing them from growing too large. The barriers between territories were not just physical, they were also psychological, designed to keep the species from communicating with each other. Jack discovered that the Council had been using advanced technology to create fake disasters and extinctions. They would stage solar flares, supernovas, and plagues to explain why entire civilizations had disappeared. Then they would secretly relocate the survivors to hidden colonies like this one, where they could be studied and controlled. The beings living in the colony believed they were the last survivors of their species, saved by the Council's generosity. They had no idea that their entire civilizations were still out there, believing them to be dead. They were living in a carefully constructed lie, isolated from the rest of the galaxy. Jack realized that the Council was not the peacekeeping organization it claimed to be. They were systematically eliminating species they considered problematic or unpredictable. Rather than outright genocide, they had developed a more subtle approach. They would fake the extinction of entire civilizations, then keep small populations in hidden colonies for study and control. The next morning, Jack found Lisa in her laboratory, working on what she believed were genetic samples from extinct beings. He knew he had to tell her the truth, but he also knew it would shatter her world. "Lisa," he said carefully, "I need to tell you something important. What if I told you that the species you're studying are not extinct?" Lisa looked up from her work, confusion on her face. "What do you mean? Of course they're extinct. The Council has documented records of their destruction." "The Council has been lying to you," Jack said. "The Zephyrians, the Corvani, the Thresh, they're all alive. They're living right here in this system." Lisa stared at him for a long moment. "That's impossible. I've seen the records myself." "Their homeworlds were destroyed." Jack activated a portable scanner and showed her readings from the planets below. "These are life signs from the surface. Thousands of Zephyrians, Corvani, and Thresh. They're alive, Lisa. They're living in colonies on the planets below us." Lisa's face went pale as she studied the readings. "But that would mean ... It would mean that the Council has been lying to everyone," Jack finished. "They've been staging extinctions and hiding entire civilizations. This is not a research facility, it's a prison." Lisa sank into her chair, the weight of the revelation crushing down on her. "3 years," she whispered. "I've been here for 3 years, thinking I was helping preserve galactic history. But I've been helping to keep these beings trapped." Jack put his hand on her shoulder. "You didn't know. None of you did. The Council has been very careful to maintain the illusion." Lisa looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "What do we do?" "Now, we find a way to free them," Jack said. "All of them. The beings in the colonies and the humans who are trapped here with them." Lisa wiped her eyes and stood up. "You're right. We have to help them, but it's not going to be easy. The Council has agents throughout the colony, and they monitor everything." "We do," Jack nodded. "Then we'll have to be very careful. We need to find others who can help us, people who can be trusted." Lisa thought for a moment. "There's a man named Steve Brooks. He's a former military officer who arrived here 5 years ago. He's always seemed suspicious about the colony's true purpose. And there's Alex Turner, an engineer who maintains the power systems. He's noticed things that don't add up." "Good," Jack said. "We'll start with them. But remember, we can't trust anyone completely until we know where their loyalties lie." As Jack and Lisa began planning their next moves, they both realized that they were about to embark on something that would change their lives forever. The truth about the hidden colony was too important to keep secret, but exposing it would mean challenging one of the most powerful organizations in the galaxy. The fight for freedom was about to begin. Jack and Lisa spent the next 2 days carefully planning their approach. They could not just walk up to people and tell them the truth about the colony. The Council's agents were everywhere, and one wrong move could get them all killed or worse. Lisa suggested they start with Steve Brooks, the former military officer she had mentioned. She arranged to meet him at the colony's recreation center, making it look like a casual encounter. Jack stayed hidden nearby, watching and listening. Steve Brooks was a tall, muscular man in his 40s with short gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to miss nothing. When Lisa approached him, he was sitting alone at a table, reading reports on a tablet computer. "Mind if I join you?" Lisa asked, sitting down across from him. Steve looked up and nodded. "Of course, Dr. Carter. You look troubled." "Is everything all right?" Lisa glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "Steve, can I ask you something? Have you ever wondered why we're really here?" Steve's expression became more serious. "What do you mean?" "I mean, doesn't it seem strange that we're completely cut off from the outside galaxy? No communication, no visitors, no way to leave even for vacation." Steve put down his tablet and studied Lisa's face. "I've had my suspicions for a long time. But suspicions are dangerous things in a place like this." Lisa took a deep breath. "What if I told you that the species we're studying are not extinct? What if they're alive and living right here in this system? Steve's eyes widened slightly, but he kept his voice low. That would mean we're not researchers? We're prison guards? Exactly, Lisa said, and we're prisoners too. Steve was quiet. For a long moment, then he leaned forward. How did you find this out? Lisa told him about Jack and the discoveries they had made. Steve listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each revelation. I knew something was wrong, Steve said when she finished. 5 years ago, my ship was supposedly destroyed in a pirate attack. But I always wondered why the pirates left me alive and how the Council rescue ship found me so quickly in the middle of nowhere. The attack was staged, Lisa said. They needed your military experience to help run the colony. Steve nodded grimly. What do you want me to do? Help us build a resistance, Lisa said. We need to find others who can be trusted, and we need to figure out how to free everyone. Steve agreed to help, and over the following days, they carefully recruited others. Alex Turner, the engineer who maintained the power systems, was their next target. Alex was a thin, nervous man who jumped at shadows, but he had access to the colony's infrastructure and had noticed things that did not make sense. The power grid is way too complex for a simple research facility, Alex told them during a secret meeting in a maintenance tunnel. There are monitoring systems everywhere, and some of the equipment I maintain looks more like prison controls than research tools. Alex showed them blueprints of the colony's systems. The surveillance network was more extensive than they had imagined. Every room, every corridor, every outdoor area was monitored by cameras and sensors. The barriers between the different species. Territories were not just physical walls. They were also electronic barriers that would alert security if anyone tried to cross them. But there are weak points, Alex explained. The system is so complex that it has blind spots, and I know how to create temporary outages without triggering alarms. Their next recruit was Maria Santos, a communications specialist who had been puzzled by the complete lack of outside contact. Maria was a small, energetic woman who spoke quickly and was always asking questions. I've been trying to figure out why we can't communicate with the outside galaxy, Maria told them. At first, I thought it was just security protocols, but the equipment we have here is not set up for external communication at all. It's like they never intended for us to contact anyone outside this system. Maria had discovered that the colony's communication system was actually a closed loop. All messages were monitored and filtered by the Council's agents before being passed on. Most messages requesting outside contact were simply deleted without the sender being told. I can hack into the system, Maria said. But I'll need time. And a distraction to avoid detection. Their final recruit was Danny Rodriguez, a security officer who had grown uncomfortable with the increasing surveillance measures. Danny was a quiet man who had been watching the colony's operations with growing suspicion. They've been adding new security measures every month, Danny told them. More cameras, more sensors, more restrictions on movement. It's like they're afraid the people here are going to revolt. Danny had access to security schedules and protocols. He knew which guards could be trusted and which ones were loyal to the Council. He also knew about the colony's defensive systems and how they could be disabled. With their core team assembled, Jack and Lisa began planning their resistance movement. But they quickly realized that their biggest challenge was not the Council's security measures. It was convincing the inhabitants of the colony that they needed to be freed. Many of the humans had been in the colony for years and had grown comfortable with their lives. They had nice homes, interesting work, and all their basic needs were met. The idea of leaving this safety for an uncertain future in the outside galaxy was frightening to them. The alien species faced an even bigger challenge. They believed they were the last survivors of their civilizations, saved by the Council's generosity. The idea that their entire species might still be alive seemed impossible to them. Jack decided that the key to success was proving that the different species could work together. The Council had kept them separated for so long that they had forgotten they were all prisoners in the same cage. Jack began making secret contact with individuals from each species. He used Lisa's research access to move between the different territories, pretending to be collecting samples and data. But instead of studying them, he was talking to them. The first alien he approached was a Zephyrian named Kale. Kale had beautiful crystal wings that caught the light as he moved, and he could communicate through a form of telepathy that Jack found fascinating. "Your people are not extinct," Jack told Kale during a secret meeting in a forest clearing. "There are millions of Zephyrians living in other star systems, believing that you died when your homeworld was destroyed." Kale's wings trembled with emotion. "How can this be? We saw the records of our sun's expansion. We watched our homeworld burn." "The council staged it," Jack explained. "They used advanced technology to create false images and readings. Your homeworld is still there, and your people are still living on it." Kale was silent for a long time, his telepathic abilities allowing him to sense the truth in Jack's words. "If this is true, then we have been living a lie for generations." "Yes," Jack said, "but we can change that. We can free your people and reunite you with your civilization." Kale agreed to help, and through his telepathic connections he began carefully spreading the word to other Zephyrians. Their ability to communicate without speaking made them valuable allies in the resistance. Jack had similar conversations with representatives from the other species. The Corvani were master engineers who could help disable the colony's security systems. The Thresh were peaceful but determined, and their knowledge of the colony's agricultural systems would be crucial for any escape plan, but building trust between species that had been kept apart for so long was not easy. The Zephyrians were suspicious of the Corvani's technology. The Corvani thought the Thresh were too passive to be effective allies. The Thresh worried that the Zephyrians' telepathic abilities made them dangerous. Jack realized that he needed to bring them together in a way that would show them their common goals. He arranged a secret meeting in an abandoned section of the colony's underground maintenance tunnels. Representatives from all three species gathered in the dark tunnels, along with the human resistance members. At first, the meeting was tense and uncomfortable. The different species had not interacted in years, and they had almost forgotten how to communicate with each other. But as Jack explained the true situation and the Council's deception, something began to change. The aliens realized that they had all been victims of the same lies. The humans realized that they had been used as unwitting accomplices in a crime against entire civilizations. "We are all prisoners here," Jack told the group. "The Council has stolen our freedom, our families, and our futures. But together we can take them back." Kale stepped forward, his crystal wings shimmering in the dim light. "The humans speak truth. I can sense it in their thoughts. We must work together to escape this place." A Corvani engineer named Zara nodded agreement. "My people's technology, combined with human determination and Zephyrian telepathy, could overcome the Council's security systems." A Thresh representative named Finn spoke in his gentle voice. "My people have always believed in peaceful solutions. But sometimes peace must be fought for. We will help." The resistance movement had been born. Representatives from 4 different species, united by their desire for freedom, began planning the most audacious escape in galactic history, but Jack knew that the hard part was just beginning. The Council would not give up their prisoners without a fight. The resistance movement spent 2 weeks planning their escape. They met in secret, using the colony's maintenance tunnels and blind spots in the surveillance system. Every detail had to be perfect because they would only get one chance. Jack studied the cloaking field that surrounded the star system. Alex had helped him understand how the technology worked. The entire system was powered by a massive control station located on the primary planet, deep underground beneath the main administrative complex. "If we can destroy that control station, the cloaking field will collapse," Jack explained to the group during one of their secret meetings. "But getting there will not be easy. It's the most heavily guarded location in the entire colony." Steve Brooks had been mapping the security systems with Danny's help. "The control station has 3 levels of defense," Steve said. "Automated weapon systems, energy barriers, and a squad of Council security forces that never leave their posts." "The automated systems are the biggest problem," Alex added. They're programmed to kill anyone who gets too close without proper authorization. Codes. Maria had been working on the communication systems. I can hack into the colony's network and create false emergency signals, she said. That should draw some of the guards away from the control station. Kale, the Zephyrian representative, had been coordinating with his people through their telepathic network. My people can create illusions with our abilities, he said. We can make the guards see things that are not there, but only for a short time. Zara, the Corvani engineer, had been studying the colony's power grid. If we overload the main generators, at the right moment we can cause a system-wide blackout. That will disable most of the automated defenses. Finn, the gentle fresh representative, had been organizing his people for the evacuation. My people know every path through the agricultural areas. We can guide everyone to the hidden transport ships without being seen. The plan was complex, but it was their only hope. They would need to coordinate actions across all 3 planets simultaneously. The timing had to be perfect, and everyone had to play their part exactly right. Jack had discovered something else during his investigation of the colony. Hidden in the maintenance bays were dozens of transport ships that the Council used to bring supplies and new prisoners to the colony. The ships were small but fast, and there were enough of them to evacuate everyone if they could reach them. The Council never expected anyone to try to escape, Jack told the group. They've grown lazy and overconfident. That's going to be their downfall. The Resistance decided to launch their escape at dawn, when the colony's activity was at its lowest point. They would have approximately 6 hours before the outside galaxy would be able to detect the collapsed cloaking field and send ships to investigate. 3 days before the escape, something went wrong. One of the human researchers, a man named Paul Jenkins, became suspicious of Lisa's recent behavior. He reported his concerns to the Council agents who ran the colony. Danny overheard the security forces discussing increased surveillance and knew they had to move their plan forward. They're getting suspicious, he warned Jack. We need to go tomorrow night or we might not get another chance. Jack gathered the Resistance leaders for an emergency meeting. It's not ideal timing, but we don't have a choice. Is everyone ready? The group looked around at each other. They had spent weeks preparing for this moment, but now that it was here, the reality of what they were attempting felt overwhelming. They were going to challenge one of the most powerful organizations in the galaxy with nothing but courage and determination. We're ready, Steve said, speaking for all of them. The escape began at midnight. Maria started by hacking into the communication systems and sending false emergency signals to different parts of the colony. Security teams rushed to investigate reports of fires, equipment failures, and medical emergencies that did not exist. Alex began his work on the power grid, carefully, overloading circuits in a sequence that would cause maximum disruption without triggering automatic safety systems. The lights throughout the colony began to flicker and dim. Kale and the other Zephyrians moved through the shadows, using their telepathic abilities to confuse guards and create illusions that hid the movement of evacuees. Their crystal wings caught the moonlight as they flew between buildings, guiding people to safety. Zara and her Corvani engineers went to work on the automated defense systems, using their advanced technical knowledge to disable sensors and weapons without setting off alarms. Their mechanical expertise proved invaluable as they quietly dismantled the Council's security network. Finn and the Thresh began guiding groups of evacuees through the agricultural areas toward the hidden transport ships. Despite their peaceful nature, they moved with quiet efficiency, making sure that no one was left behind. Jack, Lisa, Steve, and Danny formed the strike team that would assault the control station. They made their way through the colony using maintenance tunnels and emergency corridors that Alex had mapped out for them. The control station was located 5 levels underground, accessible only through a heavily guarded elevator shaft. The team used Corvani tools to cut through ventilation shafts and bypass the main entrance. As they descended toward the control station, they encountered the first line of automated defenses. Laser turrets emerged from the walls, scanning for intruders. But Zara's sabotage had worked. The weapons powered up but failed to fire. their targeting systems confused by false signals. The second line of defense was energy barriers that blocked the corridors. Steve used military demolition charges to blast through them, while Lisa worked to override the security codes using information she had gathered during her years at the colony. The final obstacle was the Council security squad guarding the control station itself. These were not ordinary guards but elite soldiers with advanced weapons and armor. They had been specifically chosen for their loyalty to the Council and their willingness to kill anyone who threatened their mission. The battle was fierce but brief. Steve's military training proved crucial as he led the assault on the security position. Danny's knowledge of the guards' routines allowed them to catch the soldiers by surprise. Jack's determination drove him forward even when the odds seemed impossible. Lisa reached the control station's main computer while the others held off the remaining guards. Her hands flew over the controls as she searched for the shutdown sequence that would collapse the cloaking field. "I found it," she shouted over the sound of laser fire. "But the system requires 2 authorization codes entered simultaneously." Jack rushed to her side while Steve and Danny continued fighting. "What do we need to do?" "You take that console, I'll take this one," Lisa said. "When I count to 3, we enter the codes together." The Council guards made one final desperate assault on their position. Danny was hit by a laser blast and went down, but Steve managed to hold the line long enough for Jack and Lisa to complete their task. 1, Lisa counted. Jack's fingers hovered over the console. 2, the remaining guards charged their position. 3. Both codes were entered simultaneously. For a moment, nothing happened. Then alarms began blaring throughout the complex as the massive generators that powered the cloaking field began shutting down. The control station shuddered as power systems overloaded and failed. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls as the Council's most closely guarded secret began to collapse around them. "It's done," Lisa said, hardly believing it herself. Jack helped her to her feet as Steve checked on Danny's wounds. The security officer was hurt but alive. "We need to get out of here," Steve said. "The whole system is going to overload." The team made their way back through the collapsing facility as explosions echoed behind them. The cloaking field was failing, and with it, the Council's ability to hide their crimes from the galaxy on the surface. The evacuation was proceeding according to plan. Thousands of beings from dozens of species were making their way to the transport ships, guided by the Resistance members who had risked everything to free them. Jack reached his ship, the Iron Horse, where Lisa and the wounded Danny were waiting. Through the viewports, they could see the cloaking field flickering and failing around the star system. "This is it," Jack said as he started the engines. "There's no going back now." The fleet of transport ships lifted off from the colony's surface, carrying thousands of liberated beings toward an uncertain but free future. Behind them, the hidden colony that had been their prison was finally being revealed to the galaxy. The hardest part of their journey was just beginning. The evacuation fleet emerged from the failing cloaking field into open space, and Jack could hardly believe what he saw waiting for them. Ships from across the galaxy had detected the massive energy disruption when the cloaking field collapsed. News of the hidden colony was already spreading through interstellar communication networks like wildfire. Jack counted at least 50 ships from different worlds and species, all drawn by the incredible discovery of an entire star system that had been hidden from the galaxy for centuries. Some were military vessels, others were new ships, and many were just curious civilians who had heard the reports and come to see for themselves. "This is Captain Morrison of the Liberation Fleet," Jack broadcast on all frequencies. "We are evacuating prisoners from a secret council facility. We request safe passage and protection for the refugees." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Ship after ship responded with offers of help, supplies, and sanctuary. The galaxy had been waiting for proof that the Galactic Council was not what it claimed to be, and the hidden colony provided that proof in the most dramatic way possible. Lisa worked frantically at the communication console, coordinating with the approaching ships. "The Andromedan Republic is offering to take in the Zephyrians," she told Jack. "The Free Worlds Alliance wants to help relocate the Corvani. The Peaceful Systems Coalition is prepared to provide sanctuary for the Thresh. But not all the approaching ships were friendly. Jack's sensors detected Council military vessels moving in from the outer edge of the system. They were still hours away, but when they arrived, there would be a fight. "We need to get everyone to safety before the Council fleet gets here," Jack told Steve, who was helping coordinate the evacuation from his position on one of the transport ships. Steve's voice crackled over the radio. "The civilian ships can't protect us from Council warships. We need to move fast." The evacuation became a race against time. The liberated beings were transferred from the small transport ships to larger vessels that could carry them safely out of the system. The Zephyrians, with their telepathic abilities, helped coordinate the massive logistical operation. The Corvani used their engineering skills to improve the transport ship's speed and efficiency. The Thresh organized the refugees and made sure no one was left behind. Kale contacted Jack through the communication system, his voice filled with emotion. "Captain Morrison, my people have been in contact with our homeworld. Our civilization never died. There are indeed millions of Zephyrians who have been mourning us as dead for generations." Similar reports came in from the other species. The Corvani homeworld was thriving, having rebuilt after what they believed was a supernova that killed all the colonists in distant systems. The Thresh civilization had grown and prospered, never knowing that thousands of their people had been secretly imprisoned. The reunion broadcasts began almost immediately. Families that had been separated for decades were talking to each other for the first time in years. Entire civilizations were learning that loved ones they had mourned as dead were actually alive and free. Jack watched the emotional scenes on his view screen and felt a deep satisfaction. This was why he had become a pilot in the first place, to help connect people across the vastness of space. But he had never imagined he would help reconnect entire civilizations. The Council military fleet arrived 6 hours after the cloaking field collapsed, but by then it was too late. The evacuation was complete, and the story of the hidden colony had spread to every corner of the galaxy. News ships broadcast live footage of the liberated prisoners and their emotional reunions with their homeworlds. Admiral Kane, the Council fleet commander, tried to maintain control of the situation. "This facility was a classified research station," he announced on all frequencies. These beings were volunteers participating in important scientific studies. But the evidence was overwhelming. The surveillance systems, the breeding programs, the psychological conditioning, all of it had been documented by the Resistance members and was being broadcast across the galaxy. The Council's lies were exposed for everyone to see. Jack received a priority communication from Earth's government. "Captain Morrison, this is President Williams. On behalf of humanity, I want to thank you for your courage. You've exposed one of the greatest crimes in galactic history." Other governments quickly followed with their own statements. The Andromedan Republic declared the Council's actions to be genocide. The Free Worlds Alliance called for immediate trials of Council leaders. The Peaceful Systems Coalition demanded the immediate release of any other hidden colonies that might exist. Lisa established the Free Colonies Foundation within a week of the escape. Her first priority was helping the liberated beings reconnect with their homeworlds and rebuild their lives. The Foundation received support from governments and private organizations across the galaxy, all eager to help the victims of the Council's crimes. "We're getting reports of other hidden colonies," Lisa told Jack during one of their regular meetings. "The Zephyrians' telepathic network has been in contact with beings who claim to be from extinct species. There might be dozens of these places, scattered across the galaxy." The investigations that followed revealed the true scope of the Council's deception. Over the past 3 centuries, they had staged the extinctions of 47 different species and hidden their survivors in secret colonies. Millions of beings had been living as prisoners, believing they were the last of their kind. The Galactic Council fell within 8 months of Jack's discovery. The evidence of their crimes was too overwhelming to ignore or explain away. Mass protests erupted on Council worlds, and several member governments withdrew their support entirely. The new Galactic Federation that replaced the Council was built on very different principles. Every species, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, had a voice in the government. Representatives from the formerly extinct civilizations were given prominent positions to ensure that such crimes could never happen again. Jack found himself reluctantly hailed as a hero across the galaxy. Statues were built in his honor, and schools taught children about his courage. But Jack was uncomfortable with the attention. He insisted that the real heroes were the beings who had survived years of imprisonment and still found the strength to fight for freedom. "I just did what any decent person would do," Jack told reporters during one of the few interviews he agreed to give. "When you see injustice, you have to act. It doesn't matter if you're just one person against a powerful organization. Sometimes, one person is all it takes to start a revolution." Jack returned to his life as a cargo pilot, but his routes had changed dramatically. Instead of hauling freight, he now transported families who were being reunited after decades of separation. The Iron Horse became famous throughout the galaxy as the ship that had started the liberation movement. Kale and his fellow Zephyrians established a new colony world where they could live freely while maintaining contact with their homeworld. They used their telepathic abilities to help other species communicate and coordinate relief efforts for the former prisoners. Zara and the Corvani became the galaxy's leading experts on Council technology, helping to dismantle the remaining hidden colonies and defensive systems. Their engineering skills were crucial in the massive effort to reunite the scattered civilizations. Finn and the Thresh established peaceful meditation centers throughout the galaxy, helping beings heal from the trauma of imprisonment and loss. Their gentle wisdom provided comfort to thousands of families who were struggling to rebuild their lives. Steve Brooks founded a new galactic peacekeeping force based on principles of transparency and accountability. Unlike the Council's secret military, this new organization operated in the open, with oversight from civilian governments and regular public reporting. Lisa Carter's Free Colonies Foundation grew into one of the galaxy's most important humanitarian organizations. She spent the rest of her life helping displaced beings find new homes and ensuring that the crimes of the past were never forgotten. The hidden colony itself became a memorial and research center, a reminder of the price of unchecked authority and the power of ordinary beings to change the galaxy. Visitors from across the known worlds came to see the place where the liberation movement began. Jack continued flying the outer rim routes, but now he carried more than cargo. He carried stories of freedom and hope, spreading them to every world he visited. The Iron Horse became a symbol of the belief that all beings deserve the right to determine their own destiny. Years later, when historians asked Jack what had motivated him to risk everything for strangers, his answer was simple: freedom is not something you can give to someone else. It's something you help them take for themselves. Those beings in the colony had the courage to fight for their freedom. I just helped them find the key to their cage. The galaxy was a very different place than it had been before Jack Morrison found the Council's hidden colony. It was a place where diversity was celebrated, where the strong protected the weak, and where the light of freedom burned brighter than ever before, illuminating the path for all who dared to dream of something better.